God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, Brother Sam, welcome.
Blaine, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Glad you're here, man.
Yeah.
I heard your story in NA, New Hope, and I was like, dude, that guy's freaking solid. And you look younger, and then you hear how much time you have, and you're like, oh man, that's freaking legit. How old were you when you got sober?
24.
Yeah, that's pretty young.
I think it's good genes that I look younger.
Yeah, no, for sure. It must be all the drywall you inhale.
Yeah, that's what did it for sure.
Embalming fluid.
Yeah, exactly. 18 years of drywall.
Yeah, jeez Louise. So let's take it all the way back. Where did you grow up? Are you from this area or what?
Yeah, I was born in Walnut Creek in the Bay Area. My parents grew up in the Bay Area, but they moved us up to Rough and Ready.
Okay.
So just up the hill here from Auburn.
Yeah.
And because they didn't want us growing up. You know, I was born down there, and then my mom got pregnant with my brother.
Yeah.
And they didn't want us growing up in that environment that they lived in.
Yeah.
You know, and so they moved us up to Rough and Ready. So I grew up in that area there, Rough and Ready, Penn Valley,
Nice.
Grass Valley, that area.
And you got both parents in the house?
Until I was 9.
Okay.
Both parents in the house. A lot of chaos and dysfunction.
Okay.
Yeah, both parents are addicts.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
What did that look like?
to me, until I got a little bit older, it was just my normal, you know, because I didn't know there was much of a difference
Yeah.
until, you know, I started going to other kids' houses and stuff in school, and I was like, they're eating at the dinner table. And,
Right. Dad's not yelling at mom.
There's no yelling happening, and,
Yeah.
you know, mom's not flying off the handle,
Right.
or, you know, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. And how about your parents' upbringing? Did they come from that type of stuff too? Just on down the line or what?
So my dad came from neither of, you know, his side of the family is no addiction at all. But his parents were both born in like the 40s, so there was no like outward love given. You know, he told me he didn't hear "I love you" ever his whole childhood or anything. And during the summers, he'd get told, "Go outside, come home at night,
Whatever, yeah.
see you at the end of the summer," kind of thing. And my mom, there was like pharmaceutical addiction that was, you know, doctor given, so it was okay. And you know, I found out later on that like my great grandmother used to give pharmaceutical speed to my aunt and my mom to help with chores around the house.
Oh yeah.
When
Mommy's little helper.
Yep, when they were little girls. So
Wow.
that's kind of, there was addiction way back in that my mom's side of the family.
I think
so.
you know, it was looked at differently back then. You know,
sure.
they didn't really understand. I mean, maybe they did.
Yeah, they might
But
have,
it seems like they looked at it differently. Like they weren't thinking of, you know, their child's going to get addicted from this or whatever, you know.
No.
I mean, think of the way they used to look at cigarettes, you know. It was just everywhere. And it was like you smoke in the car and just anywhere you're at, it's non-addictive and, you know.
It's just the thing to do.
Just thing to do.
Helps you stay lean.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Interesting. So what happened after the separation? How'd that change the dynamic and everything in the house?
So my mom left my dad. My dad went into a really deep depression.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you know, there was just lots of chaos and dysfunction. My mom was not happy. They moved up to Rough and Ready to like change the lifestyle, quit using drugs, do it geographic. They didn't know anything about recovery or anything like that. That was their whole lifestyle. Well, geographic didn't change anything, you know, as we know.
Yeah.
And my mom stayed unhappy, left my dad. Dad went into a deep depression. And they just kind of said, well, you guys can come live with me or stay with dad, whatever you want to do. So me and my brother spent most of our time at my mom's. And man, I was an angry kid. And kind of didn't really understand what was going on too much. And so,
What were you angry about, you think?
well, my mom, I felt like my mom was being selfish and chose her boyfriend over me, over my brother. Because when she first left, she would make a lot of false promises. I'll come get you guys. Wouldn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be sitting on the porch waiting for her to show up, kind of stuff, and then she wouldn't show or call, so I'd be crushed, stuff like that.
Start getting those resentments going.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that I'm not good enough, kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she want to come get me or whatever?
And I mean, it went back further than that. When I was a little kid, she would fly off the handle, make me go with her, leave my brother at the house, and then during the drives, she'd be screaming at me. I'm like, can't see over the dash, and she's screaming, "You're just like your father. He's a piece of shit. You're gonna be just like your father. You're not gonna amount to anything. He doesn't amount to anything. Stuff like that." And so I'm going, oh. And then we get to where we're going, and then she'd be like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean what I said." Just crazy dynamic, So
yeah,
and that was like 4 and 5. So wild stuff for a little kid, dude.
Yeah, it's a little much.
Yeah.
Oh man,
but
jeez. So, how was your adolescence in a teenage? Like, when was the first time you ever used or drank?
First time I used, I was 9.
Okay.
Prior to that, like, I was totally into sports. Loved all sports: baseball, football, basketball. Naturally, I gifted athletic.
Mm-hmm.
I loved baseball. It was always probably one of the best ones on the team. It's always a lot bigger than all the other kids. I probably could have went somewhere in football or baseball. I always thought I could have went somewhere in basketball until I realized that most point guards are 6'2", and I'm way too slow. But first time I put in, I was 9, and pretty quickly started making choices to get loaded rather than do things that mattered to me.
Yeah.
So, and gravitating towards that crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's unfortunate when what was it, your friends, or how did you? Yeah.
So I had a friend who lived, we lived up in the hills, so it wasn't like there was a neighborhood, but you kind of lived, you'd take the trail through the woods, take the NID ditch back through the woods to his house, and him and his older brother had some weed one time, and we just smoked some pot, and I remember him giving me a ride back to my house on a dirt bike, and for the first time I wasn't worried about what I was walking into, what kind of eggshells I was going to have to walk on, or what kind of chaos was going to be happening at the house. And I remember going in the house and standing between my parents and being like, I don't even care what's happening right now, and as a 9-year-old kid to be that scared of what's going on at home, and then for some substance to relieve all that.
Yeah.
Sure, I remember thinking, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's a pretty heavy decision for a 9-year-old to be making,
yeah, definitely.
I mean.
Yeah. Jeez, that's super young.
Yeah.
And what are the effects of that substance on a developing brain that young,
For sure.
It's we don't even really know.
No.
Yeah. Man, so how did that progress into high school or what?
Let's see. At 11, my mom found out I was smoking pot, and the same day I smoked pot with my mom. Yeah.
Nice.
And then I probably tried alcohol around that same age for the first time. Probably got alcohol poisoning around that same year.
So how did that play out? She found your stash or what?
I think I broke into her bedroom looking for weed, and she found out I broke into her room because they had a tape recorder or something going, the noise activated tape recorder.
Oh wow.
Something crazy like that, and I just admitted to it and told her what was going on, and so she rolled a joint and smoked it with me that night. And
nice.
Yeah.
A little bonding moment
between mother and son. That's normal in every household in
You're 11
1990, right?
I guess. I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So then it was fine. It wasn't really a big deal after that.
I mean, no, for me that was all normal at that point. Like instead of, working for chore money, I'd work for weed. Instead of asking for presents for Christmas or my birthday, I'd ask for like a pot pipe or, something paraphernalia related. I mean, it just became the new normal for me.
Yeah. And was mom using drugs at this time? Or
yeah.
What was she using?
She was using meth and weed and alcohol.
Yeah.
And
partying.
Oh, well, her and my dad they both sold drugs.
Oh.
So that was like my dad's main source of income was selling drugs, and then his cover was like selling firewood.
Nice.
And my mom always held a job, or multiple jobs my whole childhood, and then sold drugs as a side hustle.
Yeah.
And probably to keep herself with drugs. And
right.
So I did get my work ethic from my mom.
That's good.
Because I always saw her work hard and work multiple jobs and all that sort of stuff. And she did, to their credit, like they were still really good people. Like they instilled morals and values in me and, taught me about principles in the grand scheme of things, taught me about principles, even though they were probably living against a bunch of them. So it was kind of confusing for a kid as well. Like, here's what honesty is.
Yeah.
Here's the workaround of honesty, and it's like, oh, that's really confusing.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
But you learn things in those environments that a lot of other kids don't learn.
For sure.
You learn the workarounds and you learn some hustle and some, a little bit of a different perspective on life than kids that are sheltered and
oh yeah, for sure.
So but you also get some some dysfunction and
very dysfunctional.
Pick up some habits that you shouldn't have at 11 and ends up hindering you in the long run for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you got kids now, right?
Yeah, 16 and 17, about to be 17, 18.
Never seen you loaded.
Never seen me loaded.
That's awesome.
Very awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're so innocent.
That's good, dude.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their own stuff going on, but it's like...
Dude, I got young kids, bro, and it's like, we have an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's like, I couldn't imagine smoking weed with them. Are you, what's wrong with you, bro?
Dude, at my son's age, I was doing meth with my mom.
That's crazy.
Because 17 is when I started doing meth with my mom.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And did you get it from her?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'd get it from her. I'd get it for her. We'd do it together,
And how's she doing now?
She'll be 73 this year. She's slowed down a lot.
That's good.
I mean, I think part of it's age, Part of it's just she can't run like she used to,
Yeah.
And,
does she still use occasionally?
She still uses as often as she can.
Wow.
I think her main now is probably alcohol and weed.
Yeah.
But the meth is probably whenever she can. Before it was like meth and then weed and alcohol.
Yeah.
But
dude, I seen this video. I mean, how long can you use meth for? Apparently a long time.
I think it depends on your genetics, dude.
I seen a video on Facebook and it was like, this lady had to have been in her 70s getting pulled over by the cops and like she's on the dash, like getting handcuffed, and the cop looks in the car and there's a raccoon in the front seat holding the meth pipe, bro. It's like, what is going on?
Oh, that's crazy.
It's crazy that you'd even be using at that age. Or your heart just won't explode.
I don't know. Yeah, it's wild.
Genetics.
My dad, he got cancer. He died in 2015 of throat cancer is what ultimately took him.
Is he a smoker?
He smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
He and he also, his main way of using crank was snorting. so it was always in the throat.
Yeah.
But he, was using drugs, and then took all the chemo. They chemoed him as much as they could.
Yeah.
And he had pretty much beat it. Had about almost 5 years cancer free, and then it came back with a vengeance, and took him ultimately. But he, even still, like, addiction is, dude, it's so gnarly, bro. Because when he was in on hospice and stuff at home, he was like trading his pain pills for meth and stuff, and like when he still could, function fairly okay.
Not wild.
Yeah, totally wild.
Cunning, baffling, powerful. You know, it's just like, it just takes you all the way. To the very end.
Yeah, and I thought that was my destiny too.
Yeah.
Before I got clean, like I thought that was my destiny.
It's all of our destiny,
Yeah.
And until you pump the brakes and like do something different, like that's it, bro. Like that's the end of the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get cancer and you freaking, or you're in your 70s still snorting, and you know what I mean? Like
prison or
yeah. Jail's institution and death, dude.
Yeah,
that's it. I was on the same path. I was sick and messed up and bleeding ulcers and heart palpitations and just a mess, dude. My body was failing, my health, everything, my mental stability, like just couldn't hold anything together. I was on, I got locked up, and it was like blatantly obvious that I was just going to be in and out of prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
If I didn't die, And that's where it goes, man. And nowadays it's like you're just playing Russian roulette with these drugs out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's true.
We had a mutual friend whose son had gotten some drug off the internet and overdosed. It had fentanyl in it, and it had no intention of doing that, and it's like scary, dude.
It's very scary.
Very scary. So you never know. It's definitely not worth it to even be messing around. But the thing is like, you just never think it'll happen to you.
Right.
It's like you hear these stories, you see it on the news, you see it on, social media, and it's just, for whatever reason, you just never feel, I never felt like it would happen,
Yeah.
I never thought I could even be addicted.
Right.
I seen people in the Oxycontin epidemic, like getting strung out, dying, going to prison, killing themselves. And I'm like, I seem to be able to use it without any of these repercussions, but it's just a matter of time. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You continue to use, and it's just, especially opiates, you become physically addicted and stuff. And then it's like, just hijacks your brain. Meth does too, for sure. It's like, just totally changes your thinking pattern to where, you're willing to do all kinds of wild stuff to continue this run.
Yeah. The getting and using, finding ways and means to get more.
Yeah, dude. Just like all your morals and values just go out the window.
Yeah.
Which is, it's wild, but it's just the way that it goes. So you started using drugs when you were 17?
That's when I started using meth, yeah. No, 15. I started using meth at 15. Just with my mom at 17. So it was like off and on. It wasn't every day used at 15.
Just partying.
Just as often as I could.
Yeah. And how did that change your game?
At first, I loved it. It was like, I can come out of myself a little more, talk to people easier, care a little bit less about my self-esteem issues, and because I was like I was a lost kid, man. I didn't know. I was scared, insecure, did not interact with people, socially inept. Like I said, I've been smoking weed at that point for most of my formative years, so
stunting all that growth.
Yeah. And so I felt like it helped me get out of myself at the time, but then fast forward a couple years, and I'm doing it every day, and it's not doing the same thing for me anymore that it was, and then I'm like, well, I'm just turning into my parents, like these people that I said I'd never be, And
so growing up and like in high school and stuff, did you have any dreams or ambitions or direction? Like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. Any mentors that were trying to like push you in the right direction or anything like that?
I mean, I want to say I had some dream. Like I still thought about playing sports and stuff a little bit. So going from junior high to high school, I got sent straight into a continuation high school. So I didn't really get the option to.
Why? You were just failing classes.
Failing classes. Yeah. I got a certificate of completion from junior high. I didn't graduate junior high. And so they just kind of pushed me through.
Yeah.
And they're like, the year after I went to high school, they made it mandatory for all kids to go to a regular high school. But at that point, it was like, well, if you're not, if you're just going through the motions, you go straight to continuation. And a lot of the teachers there, I mean, I had a couple of role model teachers there, but I don't know, I want to say I was just already so lost and so in so much inner turmoil that nothing really broke through. It's kind of like, well, this is just who I am. This is where I'm at, and I don't think there's much else out there for me really at that point. And a lot of my teenage years, like I just kind of already was hoping to die. I don't think I was ever really serious about taking my own life, or I don't think I really want to do it myself. Whenever I got serious about thinking about it, it always entered my mind, like, if I do this, who's going to find me? Who's it going to affect? Who's it going to hurt? And so I wouldn't ever take it any more serious than just the thought of it, And
do you think that was mostly just because you were caught up in that cycle, or just like the self-loathing, or?
Yeah, I think all that above. I was definitely in a lot of self-loathing. I was definitely just my whole purpose at that point was just about staying loaded.
Yeah.
And I didn't like going to high school. I was just angry at my circumstances, and didn't really see that I had a part in it. I was angry at my parents. I was angry at the world.
Yeah.
And I'd punch holes in walls and when I'd get angry, and I had no way of processing emotions or feelings, and so I'd turn into a volcano, and then I'd burst and smash walls and stuff like that, and self-harm. I'd do some self-harming. I'd burn myself, and so.
Do you think that was to punish yourself, or was it just to like?
Mostly as a release.
A release. So it was
mostly as a release, because I would get to a point where, like, I wanted to hurt. I just wanted to hurt other people and attack or lash out, and not like in a super violent way or anything, but just lash out. And so I would get just to the point where I was going to burst, and I would just usually just burn myself, and it would just like a calm would come over me,
Interesting.
And it would be just like a release of all those emotions and.
Yeah.
And I'm going through that with my daughter a little bit now. And it's allowed me to at least understand where she's coming from in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
So
that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there any talk of a higher power or God or any type of anything growing up?
The only thing I ever heard of God when growing up was I had a children's Bible, and I read it a little bit. I read a little bit of it, but I said God damn it once, and my dad said he just said to me, "Be careful how you say that. You never know what God will damn up." And I said, "Okay, I don't know what that means exactly, but." So I just I used to think that if there was a God, he hated me, and there was no way that he was going to let me die like I wanted to, because he was punishing me for something that I must have done. And so I was going to live a long, miserable life like I had been living, because I was just so unhappy with my circumstances.
And how has that relationship evolved?
So when I first got clean, it's evolved. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to put it into words. Like, just to make it really simple, it's evolved from hope to faith and to trust, an unshakable trust. You know, that all my outcomes are handled by God, that all my outcomes are carried by God, that I can surrender everything in my life to my higher power, and I don't have to take the reins on anything. You know, I have to do the footwork, of course. But
Is that easy for you, or is it hard for you?
Most of the time, all areas except for sometimes finances.
Yeah.
Finances is the one
Yeah.
Finances is the one that I struggle with on a regular basis.
I've been struggling with that lately because, you know, we just started that gym and stuff, and like, you know, dumped all my savings into it, and I knew it was gonna be a crunch for a little bit, and now it's crunching, and I'm like, okay, God, like, and like everything I you know, I read the Bible and like listen to sermons, all this stuff, and everything's like faith, trust, just like be patient, like give it to God, trust, and just like trust the process, and just, you know, and I have, and honestly, that's the thing, is like God in my walk will present me with the opportunities. And it's up to me to take advantage of these opportunities. You know what I mean? And he's always blessed me with opportunities and like given me the way. You know what I mean? Not necessarily put a check in my mailbox. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he'll bring people into my life and like present opportunities and jobs and like things that I'm like, okay, well, I don't know where this came from, but right on, you know, like let's do it, you know? And so, but it's up to me to make the thing happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's happened. But yeah, dude, the finances is hard, 'cause it's like, how much do I control this? You know what I mean? Because it's like, you can give it all to God and you might end up in a park.
Yeah.
Well, God didn't bless me enough, you know? But it's like, he'll illuminate the path, but it's up to you to walk it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's not always easy though.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to, because I have, you know, in addiction, like control issues. You know what I mean? I want to control everything. I want to be in control of my own destiny. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, I love that 4-step, was because I can wipe the slate clean and like forgive people, and I take ownership of all of these relationships and situations, because if I take ownership of it, then it's my issue to clean up. You know what I mean? If you are the reason why I'm having these problems, then you have power over me.
Exactly.
And I don't want you to have power over me. I want to be able to control my own life.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you try to over control things and you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're not really in control. You know, you're not in control of other people.
Nope.
You're not people, places, and things, right?
Powerless.
Like, you're only in control of yourself, really, and your reactions to things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So how are you going to handle that? Because it's going to be a tempting process.
Yep.
Especially early in recovery, like when you don't really have the coping mechanisms. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, you know, you didn't know how to deal with this anger, so you lash out and do all. I used to do the same stuff, and it's like my coping mechanism was drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
That's all I knew since I was a kid. You know, I started using it as a teenager. Like, that's all I knew. Good times and bad. Drugs and alcohol, you know? And so you take that away and it's like, okay, how do I process this stuff, you know? And I come from a dysfunctional home too, and it was like things weren't talked about, you know, and everything was hush-hush, sweep it under the rug until it was a freaking problem.
Yeah.
And then it's a fight. You know what I mean? That's how I grew up, and that's how I processed and dealt with things too, you know? But I wanted something different, you know? And thankfully, like through this program and talking to other men and like trying to do something different, you know, you learn how to, okay, just take a step back here. First of all, is my number one thing, is like disconnect. Because if I'm reacting, my first reaction is usually anger. You know what I mean? Like, so I get a nasty message, I just want to fire one back. You know what I mean? Or you say something stupid, I just want to snap. You know what I mean? But if I can take a step back and like think about it and respond, right, instead of react, it always ends up better for me.
For sure.
And for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel better because every time I react, bro, I think about it like hours later or the next day and I'm like,
now I got to make amends.
yeah, I look like an idiot.
Yeah, that too.
Why did I say that?
Yeah.
I don't even really care, you know, when I think about it. And it's like, it's hard though. You know, it's that impulse control thing that we have too. You know, it's like the immediate is like, you know, aggression. But so what happened after high school?
Well, I dropped out of high school at 17.
Okay.
I went one day in my senior year, the first day of my senior year, and looked around, saw none of my friends were really going anymore. I'm done with this.
And what high school did you go
to? Sierra Mountain.
Okay.
In Grass Valley. Yeah, went one day, stopped going. My parents were like, well, if you're not going to go to high school, then you can get a job. But it wasn't like get a job so you can learn how to pay bills or, you know, I still live with my parents. I lived with my parents until I got clean, basically, essentially, at 24. And but it wasn't like get a job and learn how to pay bills or, you know, pay us rent or any of that sort of stuff. It was just like get a job,
just do
learn how to work, I guess.
Yeah,
you know? So which is
do
good.
something.
It taught me how to work.
Yeah,
but I got a job.
What were you doing?
I got a job at Taco Bell and Shell gas
Nice.
station, and I worked there off and on for 5 years, which I'd worked there pretty much as long as I could stay loaded.
Yeah.
And then I'd, you know, be on at the end of a long bender or whatever and be out of drugs and couldn't get up for work. You know, calling sick or not calling and not go, whatever.
Yeah.
They would always hire me back because I did when I like I said, when I work hard on whatever I'm doing. I take pride in my work and but since I've been clean, you know, I've never had to not show up or get fired or quit any job. So that's been good. I've never had to repeat that part.
That's good.
Yeah, I worked there off and on for 5 years. And
using is just progressing.
You know, I did luckily I dodged the opiate bullet. Not because I have any choice, like I would have done them. They were never really presented to me, and my parents did meth, so it was around all the time, and and so that was just my thing, you know. That alcohol and weed and but yeah, just staying strung out and, you know, working and then going out at night and committing small little crimes and stuff, burglaries or whatever, you know, thefts and just different stuff to trade for drugs or whatever. Nothing. I was not a good criminal really, which is good, but a bad enough criminal that he'd catch us a couple cases. And that's what eventually introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
In the rooms.
In jail?
Through jail. No, I didn't. Well, I did go to one meeting in jail, but no, I got Prop 36 for some drug charges. And I could not stay clean. And so they were like, well, you're going to go to jail. I was like, well, how do I stay out of jail? They were like, well, if you go to rehab. I was like, okay, I'll go to rehab. So I went to rehab for a minute and, but really just to not go to jail. And I was in this toxic relationship or very unhealthy relationship with this girl. And, you know, that relationship actually is where a lot of shame and guilt came from. It was abusive and verbally and physically and emotionally, and there was a lot of toxicity in there. And so I went into this rehab and was in there for 30 days and got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. Some H&I meetings came in there. You know, after 30 days, I was allowed to take a weekend pass. And so I was going to go on a weekend pass to this girl's house who's still getting loaded. And the counselor's like, I am going to grant you this weekend pass against all my better judgment. He's like, don't let me down.
No problem.
Yeah, I got you, dude. So I went on this weekend pass and, went to her house and got loaded. And but I came back.
That's good.
And he's like, I need you to test. And I'm like,
Ugh.
Okay. Just drug it out, Didn't tell him I was going to test. So I tested, knowing it's going to come back dirty on Thursday, 4 days later. So I'm sitting there for 4 days, dude, just sweating, praying it's going to, well, not really praying, but hoping,
Hoping,
I wasn't praying yet, I wasn't praying anything yet. And it came back Thursday dirty, and he calls me into the office, and he's like, this guy's name was Fred. Fred was a really good man. And he said, well, how come you lied? I said, I didn't know what else to do, Fred. Like, what do you mean? You know why I lied? Like, And like, well, I got to kick you out. He's like, but I'll give you a 2-week turnaround. If you stay, he's like, if you stay clean, you can be back in here in 2 weeks. You just don't use. He said, but if you don't stay clean and you go like this and this and this is going to happen. You go on the run, you're going to end up with new charges. You're going to end up, facing prison time and da. I was like, okay, I'll stay clean. And,
you got it.
Yeah. I left and went and got loaded that day,
Yeah.
And I went on the run. And I had, between dropping out of high school and when I got to that first rehab, like, I had caught some charges in, like, 3 different counties. Well, 2 different counties and a federal charge. And the federal charge, because I said I was a bad criminal, it was not for, like, moving a bunch of drugs or anything major. It was for post office burglary. And, I was all strung out, found some post office keys and went in there when they were closed and had a really good lawyer, really good attorney and public defender. And so I got charged with theft of U.S. property, but I had to pay a bunch of money back and didn't have to do much time. But in the process of screwing up a whole bunch, like I was facing 5 years in prison time for screwing up so much,
Yeah.
And so I went on the run and all kinds of stuff. And then when I finally got arrested, I remember, I remember having gone through Sac County Jail reception before. Like, it takes all night to go through, and it's just uncomfortable. And you're in these tiny little cells with, like, a bunch of people. The first time I went through, and I didn't sleep that whole time, and I was just like, this sucks. And so when I got arrested after being on the run and everything else, and like, people say, like, you need to remember your last day getting loaded, or you're gonna repeat it. Like, I don't necessarily remember the exact last day I was getting loaded. I remember, like, the last bunch of days. Like, it was like one long day of miserable, like, terrible. It wasn't fun anymore. Like, I was miserable. I was staying up a whole bunch. I was not having fun. I hated it, and I was running out of money. I was out of drugs. It was just not fun. And but I do remember this very vividly. Like, the chick I was seeing, the same unhealthy relationship. We woke up from this slumber, went over to her grandma's house to ask for a bowl of soup or something to eat. We were starving and sucked up. And we walk over there barefoot because it's across the street. We're sitting there eating, and her mom comes storming in the house like, they're on their way. And I was like, okay. I just stood up. I saw him coming in, guns drawn and stuff, and I just stood up, turned around, put my hands behind my back. And I remember this relief of just like it's over, it's done. And I remember, like, going to jail in basketball shorts, a t-shirt, and boxers, no shoes or socks, walking into that cell, and I just laid down in front of the door, dude, and put my shirt over my head and went to sleep. So relaxed, and just like that relief. Obviously, it just only lasted probably until I got to for the next couple weeks till I slept off the run. And then I was like, oh boy, I'm in here for a little while. But but I'll never forget that relief.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was like my surrender moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar experience. I had just been in and out of jail, and then just like, I was really feeling that powerlessness. Like, I couldn't freaking stop, dude. And was, I had supervised visitations with my daughter and stuff, and I couldn't stay sober even for these visitations, and losing jobs, and flipped my truck and DUI, and it was just a mess, dude. And like all of these obvious repercussions, and like good reasons to stay sober too. If I could stay sober, I could have these things, and I just couldn't do it, dude. And, went to rehab and that didn't work out. They put me on Suboxone, and as soon as that Suboxone was gone, I was like, well, now, and I just went back out, and I wanted to be sober, bro. I really did. I wanted to be sober. I wanted to be a dad, and like be normal, dude. I wanted to be okay, and I was not okay, and my life sucked, and it sucked because I was sucking at life. I was making bad decisions, and I was powerless, dude. Even though I wanted to be sober, it didn't matter. Like if I was free, I was at least drinking. I just couldn't stop. And I finally got locked up behind these felonies, and was just like that same feeling like, all right, at least I made the decision right then. I was like, it doesn't matter how much time I do in here or like what happens if I ever get my daughter back. Like this is it. Like I'm using this opportunity, and I'm not going to use anymore. Like I'm going to change the rest of this story. You know what I mean? Because I was headed down the wrong direction. I was looking at a bunch of prison time, and I was like, this is going to be a rough ride, but like I need to come out of it a better man. You know what I mean? Like I need to stop using, at least, because I knew if I didn't stop, I didn't have a chance. You know what I mean? Like at least if I could be sober, I can at least like make some somewhat sound decisions. You know what I mean? When I'm under the influence, that's just all out the window. It's all about more, more drugs, more money, more sex, more whatever, guns, cars, it's just like more, me, and I didn't want to live that way. You know what I mean? And I felt that relief too. Like, all right, at least I'm here, at least I can't walk out here and go to the liquor store right now.
Yeah.
Because I would.
Yeah.
But at least I don't have that option, and like, yeah, having some relief, but then it's like, okay, well, see where this goes, right? Because again, we don't have the coping mechanisms and like really to deal with all that, So where did it go from there?
Let's see. So I did like 7.5 months in jail. I had warrants in Nevada County, Butte County, and then federal warrants. So I did 3 months or 2.5 months. I did 3 months at the main jail, 2.5 months at the branch on a federal. It says I went to federal prison. I didn't actually go to prison. They held me at the branch, and then they shipped me out to Butte County for 2 more months, and then to Nevada County for like 3 days, and then they let me out in Nevada County, and then they ordered me to another rehab. So in my mind, like I was clean the whole time I was in jail, because I said I went to a rehab and I was introduced to NA, but I was closed-minded, dude. I didn't hear anything about like you not using or like I heard some stuff. I heard the readings and stuff, but I didn't like hear anything. I didn't absorb anything, and so like in jail, I was like, oh, I've been clean for 7.5 months, but I was taking people's pills and I was drinking Pruno and like whatever. I could still change the way I felt in there, here and there. Yeah. And
but you just weren't smoking meth or
no meth. Yeah, so I was doing good. Yeah. I did see it in there. But,
I know, dude. I never understood people that do meth in jail. It's like I literally couldn't think of anything worse.
Dude, a couple skinheads did it. Came in there, did some meth, and then got shipped off to prison. And like the other races are like, this is the other thing, dude. It's like the branch was like right one step before prison, and I'm going, okay, they're gonna. The other race that they got it from are like they're like, okay, those guys were white. Your guys is dead. Yeah. And we're like, no, man, that's not us. And that's just another thing. I'm like, I don't want to come back here, man.
I know, yeah.
I had this. I actually had this moment of awareness. It wasn't really spiritual awakening because hadn't worked no steps or anything, but it was a moment of clarity in there. And my bunkie was 28, and I was 23, I think, 22 or 23 at the time, and he was facing 2 life sentences for armed robbery.
Sheesh.
Because he had used a gun in the commission of a crime twice, and so, and he was only like smoking weed and drinking. To my mind, I was like, oh shit, I've been doing meth, man. I'm like getting crazier drugs than him, and like if I don't change what I'm doing, that's going to be my story, and I don't want that to be my story. Mm-hmm. I like some freedom. I like to be able to work. I like women. I like, I like food, good food. I like stuff that you can't get in here,
Freedom,
like, yeah. I was like, I don't want that to be my story. I got to change something.
Yeah.
So I got out. I got ordered to do another rehab. I went there with a little more willingness, but what happened was I went there. I became president of the house. I was like, all the look good stuff, social acceptability. Mm-hmm. And, but I found out that I also, if I'm not using anything, I'll act out in other ways. And I fraternized. Mm-hmm. And me and another dude fraternized with 2 other ladies. And, when they confronted us on it, me and him lied and the ladies admitted to it. Mm. And so they were like, are you sure you don't want to tell us the truth? And we're like, there's nothing to tell. We lied. They're like trying, are you sure?
We know.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We're like, nothing. No, nothing happened at all.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to be honest yet. Didn't know how to be honest. But to a fault. I was gonna lie to a fault. It says in the literature, some of us. This isn't verbatim, but some of us will lie even when the truth is easier.
Yeah.
And that was to where I was at. And okay, you guys got to pack your stuff and go. And so we got kicked out. And he was facing prison time, and I essentially was too. My federal probation officer said, the only reason you're not going to prison right now is because you're clean. Mm. He saw me the next day. He said, you're clean, so you're not going to prison. You got one more chance. You got to pay for your own rehab. We're pulling your funding. Mm. And you got 1 foot on the boat going to prison and one foot on the dock on a banana peel. Take that take that picture and leave my office. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. And
last chance,
So I left and I went and made some phone calls to a couple people. I think one of them was Fred, that guy I told you about earlier, who helped me, who made me some good advice, mm-hmm. and told him my situation. He recommended a certain rehab. So I called that rehab and got on a waiting list. And I proceeded to start drinking because I still had no coping tools that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Didn't have any coping tools yet. And it didn't really even register that that
was a problem.
That was the problem, or that my probation officer said the only reason I wasn't going to prison was because I was clean.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't really tell you. I don't really remember how long I was out, in between rehabs. It could have been 3 weeks. It could have been 2 months. I don't really remember. I know I was drunk pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
But I made it to my 3rd rehab. And that day that I made it there was August 8th of 2006. And I've been clean ever since.
Nice.
And so,
what changed?
What changed when I got there?
Yeah, what changed in your mindset, or what clicked that made it stick?
Well, I'll tell you this story right here. This is so my very first night getting there, I told you I'd still convinced myself that I was clean through jail, and that I somehow, even all that time I was drinking, I convinced myself that that wasn't using or something. And
yeah, alcohol's not your problem.
I got to the rehab and I was supposed to have 3 days clean. And I guess I have a really good denial. I had a really good denial maker, you know? So I was like, I knew I wasn't necessarily clean or sober, but I got there telling them I had 7.5 months clean or whatever. Yeah, I'm clean. Been clean. I drank the night before.
Yeah.
First night, there's a meeting. The whole group attends, and it's a tag. Or how it worked was there was a speaker, and then it went around the whole room, and everybody shared. Topic was honesty. I couldn't tell you what anybody else shared because I just remember that I remember the topic was honesty, and in my head, I was thinking about what I was going to share when it got to me, and I start sharing, and I'm sharing about how stuff's going to be different this time. This is my third rehab. I'm going to be clean. Like I want and in the back of my head, my conscience, my higher power, whatever is telling me, how is anything going to be different if you can't even be honest with these people about being that today's your first day clean?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's changing, dude. You can't even, like you're lying to everybody right now while you're sharing about honesty. These are and I remember all this vividly, and this was 18 and a half years ago. Like this was like my first day clean. And so like I after the meeting ended, we all prayed out, and I went to the volunteer staff and told them that like that was my first day clean. I stepped through the fear, and even though like they could have kicked me out and I could have went to prison for getting kicked out, and but they just said, well, thank you for your honesty and welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you got honest.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's good. How'd that feel?
It felt great.
Yeah,
it felt really good. It was scary
for
sure to do it, but then it felt really good.
Yeah,
and
feels like you got a clean slate to work with.
Yeah.
You're honest with yourself and honest with other people.
And I think that was the first time, and God knows how long that I stepped through some fear of judgment and fear of whatever, and just got honest, like that. So
it's cool. What'd you pull from that program?
I started talking to God there. So that it opened up a line of communication with God. The first like 30 days I couldn't stop thinking about getting loaded. And I told one of the counselors, he was a really godly man, and he said, well, have you tried praying? I said, I don't pray, dude. I don't know how to pray. I don't want to pray wrong. Also, I don't really believe in a God. I think God hates me. And he said, well, there's no wrong way to pray. Just do it. And just give it a try.
Yeah.
You don't have to pray to anything that you already believe is wrong for you. Just pray to something.
Yeah.
And so for all I was willing to do to talk to God was just lay in my bed at night, and I would just look up at my ceiling and just say, God, please remove the obsession to use. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to bed. I did that for, maybe a week, maybe a couple weeks. And all of a sudden I realized like I hadn't thought about getting loaded I couldn't tell you how long. And I was like, holy smokes, it worked. And so that opened up some hope about a God. I also became president of that house, but I took it serious this time. I forgot to mention the last rehab I was at, like I was president of the house, but I saw people coming back loaded, and like I even gave somebody some clean pee, and because I wasn't, I was not living a serious lifestyle of being clean,
Yeah.
And at this rehab, I was like, became president of the house, and when a couple different people came back get loaded, I was like, look, man, either you're going to go to staff and tell them you're loaded, or I'm going to have to, because you're risking everybody's recovery here, not just your own.
Yeah.
I started taking stuff seriously. I'd go to meetings and I'd listen. I'd secretary some of the in-house meetings, and I'd participate in everything. I made some friendships. And I learned about first thought wrong. You know, like I went to a tea house there because everything in me told me that I shouldn't go to a tea house. So I went to a tea house when I left there. You know, I had nowhere else to go. My options were a tea house or my parents' house.
Yeah.
Everything in me said, go to your parents' house.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So I went to a tea house.
That's good. That's good. And then, so did you hop into meetings after that?
Yeah. When I left there, I moved back to Grass Valley, moved into a tea house, started immediately going to meetings. I'd walk to meetings. Mm-hmm. Got into service, got a sponsor. Started working steps. And I got a job after a little while, started doing drywall. It was from an old friend. Well, he was actually my old drug dealer. He had gotten busted years before me, and he just disappeared, you know, never came back out on the streets. I don't know where the hell he went. He's gone. Well, I got clean and found him in NA.
That's right.
And it turns out he knew how to do a trade. Like he knew how to do something other than just sell drugs. And so he hired me to do drywall.
That's cool.
And he tricked me, man. He's like, "Oh, you're natural at this. You're really good."
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So that was the only trade you ever picked up?
That's all I've ever done since I got clean, yeah. Stuck to I mean, I've done little bits of other trades since I've been doing it, but done some framings.
You like drywall?
You know, there was a lot of years where I was like, I don't know if I was angry about it or there's parts of it I don't like, but I think I do. You know, now I've mastered it, I feel like. Yeah. So I like it. But of course, there's little parts of it that are not my favorite part of it. You know, I don't
sanding.
I don't like touch up. You know, the touch up. I'd rather sand than do touch up. I'd rather sand than scrape floors. Yeah. But
yeah.
But
drywall is an interesting one. It's, you know, I think people. Well, there's a stigma around drywall guys. You guys freaking snort drywall dust, you know?
You got to be a masochist to do drywall, dude.
Yeah, dude.
You got to love pain.
Yeah. And plus, dude, you go to some of these job sites and you see the drywall guys and you're like, where the F did you come from, bro? Yeah. You're like, what? This is the last trade available type of thing, you know? Like, you didn't get picked for electrician or framing or, you know, any flooring. Like, last pick is drywall, you know? But it's a freaking artistry, bro. Like, it really is. Like, it's very hard to be good at drywall. And if you've tried, you know that. Yeah. You know? Because you give anybody a pan and a knife and some tape and say, tape these joints, and you can tell who's done it before and who hasn't immediately. You know what I mean? There's no lying.
And yet almost everybody thinks they can do drywall.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And there's a big difference between people that can and people that can't, you know. And the pros, you know, I'm pretty good at drywall, but I would rather call you to come do some of this stuff because I know there's a difference. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's worth paying a professional that does it every day. Right. You know, at the end of the day, like if you want high end quality, yeah, I mean, I can middle of the road homes, I can spray and texture all day, you know, but like there's a difference there between the middle of the road and the professional. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I do all kinds of trades, you know. I'm kind of a jack of all, master of none, right? But the people that do the same thing every day, day in and day out, they have a different touch, you know, than people that don't, you know. And all that being said, most drywall guys are retarded, but...
I've met a lot that are, yes. Yeah, for sure.
But that's cool, though. So you picked it up and, you know, you just stuck with it. And that's good, dude. That's good. So how did your first couple years of sobriety go? What did you learn?
So
like, how's the first round of steps and all that, or what?
So here's the caveat about my first couple years of recovery. So I, at around 9 months clean, I met my daughter's mom,
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, started doing step work, started getting some self-esteem, self-confidence.
Yeah.
Started getting noticed a little bit by women, and like, wow, like people notice me. I'm feeling good about myself. Some of that started. I mean, I guess I should say, you heard me say it. I acted out a little bit in my second rehab. So, women and relationshiping has been a thing that I have worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And but at 9 months clean, I met my daughter's mom, and she's not in recovery. She's well, I thought she was a normie. She's kind of a normie, but she's got her own issues and stuff. But I met her, and I slowly drifted away from the program. Like, I was like, okay, well, I guess I had what it is I had a reservation about being a member of Narcotics Anonymous. Like, I wanted to just, it turns out I wanted to just be, have a normal life. Now, once I was clean, I wanted to just live a normal life in society, right? So, I was working for my boss who was in recovery. I was working up some steps. I worked up to like step 9, built a solid base of recovery, stayed away from people, changed all my people, places, and things. But then I drifted away from the program. And at about 18 months clean, I stopped going to meetings, stopped talking to my sponsor, stopped doing recovery, really, other than working with my boss. And I just stopped doing recovery. I continued to live by spiritual principles, essentially. I didn't do any shady stuff. But I stopped working on myself,
And had you worked the steps at this point or not?
I worked up through step 9. I didn't make it all the way through the steps. So I didn't get all the way through the 12 steps until I had over 8 years clean. 8 years clean. Yeah. Because when I came back at 7 years clean, so I was away from the program for 5.5 years. Stayed clean.
What brought you back?
So, essentially, my daughter's mom kind of became my higher power. And for the first couple years, we were happy and everything was good. We had my daughter. She's amazing. And I was a dad, and we were living a life that, I was doing drywall and trying to be a normal life or whatever. But as the relationship progressed and I stopped working on myself, I became unhappy, she became unhappy. We both realized that we weren't really in the right relationship. And after being together for about 5 years or so, we decided to end it. And I found myself, I had isolated into this marriage completely. I had no friends anymore. I was fully codependent in this relationship. There's no friends, isolated. So when it ended, I was like, I am totally alone. I started playing adult rec league basketball again, but these were just people, normies, And I was like, they're going to drink and stuff after games. I don't want to do that. I had enough recovery still in my body to know, that's not where I want to be. And then one day it just dawned on me. It's like, oh yeah, I used to go to Narcotics Anonymous. I can go there again, And so I went back to meetings, and I went back, and a bunch of people that were old timers when I was there before were still old timers again, and I felt like a newcomer again, because people were there was a bunch of people that had been there for a couple of years at this point that were like, "Who are you? You got 7.5 years clean? What?
Where you been?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to stay around. This feels really weird. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it. I just don't know how to talk to people again. Socially awkward, all the different things. And although I had been practicing principles in most of my affairs away, the relationship with my daughter's mom had become unhealthy, and we weren't talking nicely to each other and stuff like that. There was no infidelity or, no physical, but there was emotional unhealthiness and not talking nice to each other and stuff. And and I had nothing to attribute that to except for myself at this point, It's all just me. There was no drugs, no addiction to attribute it to. So that round of steps was like really, really hard and awakening. Because the first round of steps up till step 9 was like clearing out all the drugs and stuff, you know, and like a lot of the early kid resentments and different stuff. But this round of steps was like, oh wow, this is all me.
A little deeper.
And like there was still some kid stuff and childhood stuff, but it was like there's 5.5 years of being away from the program that's like just me. No drugs or addiction to blame it on. Like,
yeah.
So it was really tough.
And what kind of light bulbs went off with all that? Like, what did you really pull from that?
Just that I was still a very selfish person, and you know, I'd fallen right back into the self-loathing and selfishness, and I was very codependent, and I had lost myself into this relationship because I hadn't really ever found out who Sam was, and I'd lost God again. You know, I'd quit relying on God completely.
Mm-hmm.
And right before I came back, I was back into this feeling, wishing for death, you know, like thinking like just wishing that somebody would veer across the highway and run into me or something. Then my daughter would be better off without me. The world would be better off without me, that kind of thing, you know?
Do you feel like when you got sober, you got out, you got into the program, and then, you know, you've got this job with a family, and it kind of took place, you know, it became your new identity, like it became your new life? Because I know what you mean. Like when you get sober, I didn't know who I was, dude. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who I was. And I had spent a long time in addiction, like changing and like being different people. You know, I was a chameleon, you know, and I could blend into different environments and be whoever you wanted me to be. You know what I mean? Whoever this woman wanted me to be, whoever my boss wanted me to be, whoever my you know, group of friends I was hanging out with, these guys on the block, like whoever I needed to be, I could be that person.
For sure.
You know? And so when I got sober, I didn't know who the hell I was. Because I had played so many different, I didn't know what I liked.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was really into. I had to like, I remember thinking like, what do I want to be?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be? You know what I mean? Like, and then trying different things and like, you know, going to school and picking up different hobbies and doing new stuff. You know what I mean? Like trying to find out who I am. A lot of self-reflection, you know, and all I knew is that I wanted to like be sober and be of service. You know what I mean? Because I knew that's how I could stay sober. And so if you trade, you know, drugs for a relationship, like you never really make that connection with yourself. You know what I mean? You just like take on a new identity. This is who I am, you know, and a lot of people wrap up their identities in relationships and occupations too. You know, like I'm a drywall guy or I'm a sports guy, whatever it is, you know what I mean? I'm a mechanic. Like that's who I am. I'm a fighter, like firefighter. It doesn't matter. Like you tie up your identity into these things, and then when it's gone, then you're left on your butt again. And you're like, God, back to square one. Like, who am I really? Because you're not any of those things. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're a child of God, you know? And like you're a soul and a person like living this human experience. You know what I mean? And you got to come to terms with that first and like make this connection, you know? Because once I made this connection and felt that I'm okay here and I'm okay in here, then I can figure everything else out, you know? But I need to be okay with myself first and okay with my creator, you know, before I can even do anything else. I needed some peace, bro. I didn't have peace, you know, and I had to make peace with myself and I had to make peace with the things that I had done, you know, and like it was easy for me to forgive other people, you know, but I needed finding forgiveness for myself was a battle, you know, and like really coming to terms with some of the things that I had done and not done, you know, and the actions I had taken, you know, it's still a battle, you know, and I think it's still a work in progress. Like, and it's living in amends to my past, you know, like continuing to live on this path and be of service and be a good father and like try to be a normal person, you know what I mean? Not a piece of crap, you know, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating. Try to be a productive member of society, a good husband, and a good person. You know, that's the only. It's a daily reprieve.
Yeah.
You know, contingent on like the spiritual progress and you know progressing in my life. You know, and like being a good person because it's so easy to backslide.
Yeah.
And that's how it happens is we disconnect, bro.
Yep.
I talked to a million people that relapse, and 99% of it starts with that disconnection. You know, for whatever reason, you know, you catch a resentment in the program or whatever, you know, life takes us away, you're too busy, whatever happens, you know, but we lose that connection and that's where it starts. You know, you get isolated, and then if you don't continue to live a program of recovery outside of the program of Narcotics Anonymous or whatever it is, like if you're not still living in it, like staying connected to the literature, listening to meetings or whatever it is, like still talking to people in recovery, living healthy, you know what I mean? Like have a relationship with your higher power, you know, going to church, whatever your thing is, like, you know, you have your hobbies and a balanced life. Dude, it's easy to go back to those old habits. And it can happen slowly, you know, or it can happen quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and one bad decision can take you out, or one bad decision a day, you know, over a long period of time, and all of a sudden you're right back where you started, and you hate everybody, and you hate yourself, and you're self-loathing, and like, how did I get here? Failed relationship, and you're just like, ugh, you know. So when you got back in the program and you went through that second round and you had some awakening, where did you feel some peace and you're like, okay, I'm back on the right track? Or
I did. I got some freedom. But what happened for me was I was still so shameful around like so I had done like 3-4 steps, and then but I was still hanging on to stuff. It was like this list of resentments for myself that I was hanging on to because I believed that I didn't deserve the freedom from the shame. Like I had that deep of a core self-hatred that I was like, no, that's you. You don't get to get rid of that. And at like 8 years clean, I was still seeking validation outside of myself from relationships and stuff. So I got back from the divorce, went through a couple more relationships while working on steps and working in between, and you know, the whole time. But so at 8 years clean, I like went through this relationship. She started using. We split up, and I realized that I was who knows how long from getting loaded. Like I was in relapse mode, you know. And a friend told me like, hey, you were about to go get loaded. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, they just broke it down for me, and I was like, oh my God, you're right, you know? And I'd never been closer to getting loaded than at 8 years clean after that relationship. Not the whole 5 years I was gone or anything, but like that point. And I was like, oh my God. So I happened to be on a 4-step. And I told my sponsor, he'll share about this, like when he gives me my chip and stuff, because he has permission to share whatever he wants about me. You know, I don't care. I have nothing to hide. Yeah. And so he'll share, when he gives me my chip every year, he shares this story because to him, it's like a story of like a change, you know? He remembers the change as vividly, if not more than I do. But I said to him, I called him, I go, Steve, I'm giving you everything on this 4-step. I'm sharing it all. And he goes, okay. To me, it was like revolutionary, you know, like, and he goes, okay.
I'm breaking it down.
Like, you know, like he was never expecting me not to have, you know? And he had no expectations of me anyway, but
Yeah.
and dude, I had like a page and a half of these resentments towards myself that I wasn't gonna let go of. I was gonna take to my grave, and they almost killed me, dude.
Yeah.
And
they will kill you too.
They will. They would. If they hadn't killed me with getting loaded, I probably would have taken myself out eventually. You know.
Yeah. No, that's real, and that's an important thing to talk about, because I knew that, you know what I mean, and when I had gotten sober, I was like, dude, I need to leave no stone unturned here. Like because I was like, what happened? Like, how did I end up here? You know what I mean? Like, I'm on a hot track to prison, lost everything. Like, this is not who I am. You know what I mean? Like, I have way more potential than this. And I knew that, you know what I mean? And that's part of what kept me sick, was I was not living up to my own expectations as a man, you know? Like kind of like you said, like, even though I grew up in kind of a dysfunctional family, like my parents instilled morals and principles and like had expectations and built me up and told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I knew that. And I knew that I'm, you know, relatively intelligent and good looking and can do and do whatever the hell I want. You know what I mean? I'm a white man in California, United States of America. I'm not retarded, and I'm physically capable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a golden platter here. It's up to me to do something with it. You know what I mean? And not doing something with it was making me angry, dude.
Yeah, I've had all those same feelings.
Angry with myself, you know what I mean? And so I was like, where did this go wrong here? You know? And so going through that 4-step, and like, I didn't want to leave anything in the closet. You know, I wanted to expose everything. And I went through sister programs and just like, you know, in that flat book, read every question and wrote every answer and just tried to really get everything out of me, because I knew and I had seen people leave stuff in the closet. And if you're not willing to deal with it now, you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's going to come back around. You know what I mean? Whether you're holding on resentments for that girl or holding on resentments for your mom or whatever it is, like, that is going to resurface. And if you haven't dealt with it in the time you should deal with it, then you're going to have to deal with it in a life experience. Like, you're going to have an altercation with that person, or something's going to happen, and then all of a sudden that resentment comes up and you haven't found forgiveness for that person or taken ownership of that situation, and that will take you out, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We see it time and time again. It's like, especially with relationships with significant others and stuff, it's like, you don't deal with those issues now, they're gonna come back up, and it'll take you out, you know. And we see a bunch of people go out on their 4-steps, like, just even processing these emotions
and staying on it too long.
Dwelling. Yeah, it's a thing, you know. So you got to be careful with that. So you got it all out there.
Got it all out there, and I'll tell you what, so the 6th step is the 6th and 7th steps are my favorite steps. I feel like they're the most growth steps for me. Okay. And that first time going through, or not the first time, but that time going through the 6th and 7th step, like, after I just emptied my closet, man, like, I got so uncomfortable in my skin, because all of a sudden, like, I'm raw, you know, totally raw. And I was like, okay, who am I? Yeah. What am I? What do I want? What don't I want? Like, where do I lie? Where does other people start and I stop? Like, and like, all of a sudden these character defects are like, bing, 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 you know, and I'm like, oh my God, like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't like about how I act, like, you know, and I'm very aware of it, like, way more aware than I want to be, you know? Yeah. But, it was great, because, like, the awareness allowed me to start practicing spiritual principles in the place of those defects. And you know, I remember telling my sponsor one time, I was like, dude, I lied to this person for no reason. I just told a story, I lied, and like, he's like, okay, well, next time, here's a little homework for you. Next time you're talking to somebody and you lie, I want you to stop your sentence in the middle of your sentence, say, I'm sorry, I just lied to you. And then correct yourself with the truth.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is not going to be fun.
Hard. Yeah.
And I had to do that, dude. And I did it a couple times, and it was like, this is really uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
But it helped me stop lying and be honest. And it was just little things like that, you know. I just became willing to do whatever it took to change, you know.
It's good.
And I mean, the 10th step, just practicing an inventory every day and seeing like where I could have been better, what I could have done different. And then, I mean, once 11 and 12, you know, practicing prayer and meditation, and then 12, getting to give back. Like, I was nervous to get sponsees, you know, because I didn't think I was ready, and my sponsor just said, well, when it's time, you'll get somebody will ask you, you know. And today, man, I've gotten to take, like, I've had a bunch of sponsees.
Yeah.
And some of them I've had for multiple years, and I've gotten to take multiple men through the steps, and it's been such an honor, you know, to take guys through the steps, walk with them through the steps.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to learn so much more about myself, even in the process of walking them through the steps, you know. And,
definitely. And more about the steps.
Yeah. And then some of it all, not only that, but like I remember after that 4th step going, oh, thank God I don't ever have to share this, talk about this stuff again, you know?
And you do it every time.
Every time, dude. It's so funny. Like from the very first sponsee, you know? And
but that's how we relate, you know?
Yeah, relate, and it just every time it's like that much more like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know? Why was I so shameful about this? You know?
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, it's a program of like self-awareness. You know what I mean? Like becoming aware of yourself and what happened and who you are and you know, your defects and paying attention to how you're behaving. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, dude, just don't have it, you know, in society. A lot of normies, whatever. Like, I mean, I didn't have it out there either. You know, I didn't care.
No, I didn't either.
You know, I didn't care what you thought or how I was acting or how I was treating you. Like, it was just me. You know, it's me. And now it's like doing that daily inventory, like paying attention to how we're treating other people, you know? And like you're saying, like practicing that rigorous honesty. You know, I remember that. Like, I had to stop. I had to just... I mean, not even white lies, like just practice total rigorous honesty, dude, with myself too.
Yeah.
Like, catch myself lying to myself.
Yeah.
Like, that's not true. You know what I mean? Like, you're not this way or whatever. Like, changing my perspective and perception on what has happened to me and the things that I've done and who I am, you know? And a lot of that has come from prayer and meditation and like, seeking God and seeking understanding and asking him to reveal himself to me and asking him to reveal myself to me too. Yeah. You know, like, who am I? You know, like, what are we doing here? You know, it's like all of a sudden you show up on earth and you're living this life and you got these parents and these friends and it's like, what is this all about? You know, and a lot of people never get any understanding.
It's true.
You know, and we're lucky to go through those experiences and like have a program of like this self-exploration and awareness to give us a moment to like think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, they're just out there freaking raw dogging life and their trauma and they don't have any outlet and they don't have, you know, some people get into therapy and whatever, but, you know, thankfully these programs have been developed before our time to where, you know, there's a way out for us, you know.
For sure.
And that was such a blessing for me, and having a father that was a drug addict. Like, he introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous when I was 18, you know, and I didn't get sober till I was 28, but I knew there was a way out, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when I was ready, I was like, okay, like, this works. I just need to get out of my own way here, because I had tried all these different ways, you know. tried being my own sponsor and like working some of the steps and having God as my sponsor and like, you know, doing all that 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you know, not being of service and all these things, you know, and it never worked until I surrendered and was like, okay, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have the answers. I cannot successfully stay sober on my own, you know, trading alcohol for heroin and vice versa and trying to smoke pot. Like I can't do anything successfully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know that. And I had to find out the hard way. And a lot of us do, you know. And I'm going through this with a sponsee right now. He had his first time through the program, you know, he was using fentanyl and his first time getting sober, like he had the reservation that many of us do, like that heroin or fentanyl is the problem, you know, and I could still drink and smoke weed, I'll be fine, you know, and within 1 year, he was right back where he started, you know, and so now, and I had to do the same thing, you know, I tried to be the stoner, you know, and like, at the end of the day, bro, none of it ever worked for me.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to be able to deal with life on life's terms. I didn't want to have a crutch to deal with my emotions anymore. I wanted to be okay just being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to have to put in to deal with you or put in to deal with me or put in to feel okay, you know? And the way I learned to be okay is with the relationship with a higher power and then building a healthy life. Like looking at what healthy people do, you know, like paying attention to how they're eating and doing their daily program. And we see people in recovery, right? Like we see these guys, and that's how you should pick a sponsor, you know, is like see somebody that has what you want. And like, for me, it was like people that were family men and like successful in business and had their lives together. You know what I mean? A normal life and like genuinely happy and being productive members of society, you know, and then just copy their behavior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you hear all the same principles. Like, what does your morning routine look like? Like, reading spiritual literature or recovery literature, paying attention to your sleep, paying attention to your diet, your exercise, like all these, your relationships, what you're putting into your brain, like what's the media you're listening to, right? Like all these things, you hear it over and over because it matters. You know what I mean? And when I tried to put a healthy recovery program together, then things started to change.
Yeah.
You know, what does your daily program look like now, and what has changed over your process of recovery?
So now, let's see, I start every day. I get up, brush my teeth, come back out, and because I get up for my wife, I come out and I say a prayer. You know, she's still sleeping, but I lean on her and say my prayer with her even while she sleeps. And then I go out and get all my stuff ready for work, do some morning stretches. And then leave for work. On my way to work, I do like a mindfulness meditation. Has to do with gratitude and breathing and some positive affirmations. And that's been game changer.
Interesting.
Start my day with that.
What is it about the affirmations? Because I've heard this from a lot of people. Like, do you feel like it's like kind of brainwashing yourself into liking yourself, or what do you think it helps about it?
You know, because there's still some part of me that slips, like, so I've had to actively change the way I speak to myself throughout my recovery. Like if anybody ever spoke to me the way I thought to myself or spoke to myself, there would be a huge problem.
Right.
Like we would probably fight, you know,
Yeah.
even today, like if they didn't stop talking to me that way, we would probably have problems still. Maybe not fight today because I've changed a lot, but I'm not going to allow somebody to speak to me the way that I used to speak to myself.
Sure.
And so like over the years, like I would say like, Sam, you're just I'm not going to cuss a bunch, but like, you're just a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
For something like dropping my glasses. Like, what is wrong with you, you piece of garbage, you know?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, so and I would say that out loud in front of people or whatever, you know? And so how I would correct that is like, no, Sam. Out loud, I'd repeat it back out loud. No, Sam, you're not a piece of garbage. You're just a human being. You made a mistake. You dropped something. Not a big deal. And so even today, like, every now and then my brain, how the disease of addiction, I sometimes think I have like two different brains in there, you know. It's like a very positive recovery brain that I've developed with God and centered and all of that. And then there's this little black piece in there that's a disease, you know, that's like, still, it's real quiet. It doesn't talk very often, but every now and then it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you know, what's wrong with you? You aren't going to amount to anything. You're still not going to ever be any good. Don't look at what you're accomplishing or any of that, because it doesn't mean anything. Oh, your money's a little tight right now? Oh, you're a failure, you know? So I feel like the positive affirmations and all that sort of stuff kind of counteracts that little negative piece that still sometimes crops up in there. And like over the last couple of years playing disc golf and stuff, so like I'd be doing really good about how I'd speak to myself and stuff, but like sports, for instance, I'd be playing sports, and disc golf was a big one because I have these really high expectations of myself in sports because, like I said, I was always naturally athletic, and so I would make a bad shot in disc golf, and my head would just be like, dude, what is wrong with you? That's the worst shot ever. Like, how are you even gonna score if you throw so bad? And like, just totally wrecking myself, you know? And so it became this thing where like, this is the perfect opportunity to work on yourself.
Yeah.
In all areas of your life.
Short memory.
Because, short memory, positive affirmations. And I mean, and it's been working, you know, because like,
good.
And not only just correcting the bad speaking, but also like patting myself on the back when I have a good shot or a good putt or a good throw, you know, whatever it might be. Because I'm always like, if somebody else has a good shot, the first thing I'm the first one to be like, great shot, dude, or, you know, whatever. But if it's myself, like I make a good shot and I'm just like, there's no positive affirmation, no good shot, Sam. Other people might say
it's expected.
Yeah. And I'll be like, somebody else say good shot, and if it's not as good as I think it is, it takes me a minute to even acknowledge it and be like, thank you, you know. So it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
For myself, but
and you're obviously very involved in NA still, you know.
Yeah, so back to your original question. So I'm speaking to sponsees on a daily basis or somebody in recovery. I work with somebody in recovery. You know, a couple of my sponsees are my best friends. They've become best friends. One of them, well, two of them do drywall. One of them I do all my side work with, like, and so it's when we do our side work together, it's not even really like work. I mean, it's still drywall, but it's, you know, we have a great time.
Yeah.
I'm of service to a couple meetings. Go to at least a couple meetings a week, and
so why are you so connected even after all this time?
Well, you know, I spent that time away, and I realized that I belong in Narcotics Anonymous. Like, NA is my normal life. And the connection that I get here is crucial to my connection to God, to my connection of the power of the group. And also, like, what was freely given to me in this program, the only way for me to give it back is to be around here. You know, it's the service that I get to give back by being around. I want to be able to give back what was so freely given to me. And, like, I owe this program a debt of gratitude that I can never pay back.
Right.
You know, it's allowed me to be a father to my kids, present in their lives, the parent that I always needed as a kid. A parent that shows up, that doesn't call them names, that doesn't get physically abusive, that doesn't harm them intentionally, you know. It's allowed me to learn how to be a husband that's a loving, kind, compassionate husband, and a partner and a friend. You know, there's no way I could pay this program back if I'm not active in it.
What do you think the secret to longevity and recovery is?
Staying active, service, continually working a program, like you said earlier. You know, staying active in your own recovery as well. I've seen a lot of old timers become complacent in their program or become closed-minded to new ways of doing the program, you know, and allow that to make them take a step back and be like, oh, they're not doing it right. Or so I guess it would be staying in those three things that are in the beginning of our readings: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, you know. So just being involved.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to a newcomer?
Well, you know, I would just say the same things that were said to me. The things that I remember hearing from the very beginning were get involved, get in the middle of the pack. You know, I remember hearing stick with the winners, but I don't really like that saying necessarily. I would like to change it to some degree to like stick with because everybody has the ability to be a winner in this program, you know, but stick with the people that are working a program. And you know, there's 5 things that when I don't hear it as often anymore, but when I was new, I heard it in every meeting I went to, and it was go to meetings, a lot of meetings. Especially if you're new, 90 meetings in 90 meetings in 90 days is a good idea. Get a sponsor, work steps with that sponsor, be of service, and read the literature. And then there was 2 more things that I'm sure they were said all the time. I just was so resistant to them because I was scared. And it was build a support group of men because we're men. And now I'm able to build a support group of women as well. At the time I wasn't. I had ulterior motives or they did. But build a support group, people who can know you and call you on your stuff and you can call and get comfortable with. And a higher power. Find a higher power or God of your own understanding. And that can be whatever. You know, it can be Jesus, it can be God, it can be whatever you want it to be. Narcotics Anonymous doesn't make you choose or tell you what it can or can't be. And that's one thing that I love about this program, you know, because like if I come in here and they had said, well, Sam, you have to believe in this and you have to do this and you have to do that and you better write this and you better write that. Like as much as I wanted to like change the way I was living and all that, like I was still so hard-headed and stubborn. I would have been like, you're telling me what to do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a crucial part of it because a lot of us come off of the streets and like some people have, you know, religious trauma or just like are angry at God or like no conception, you know, or atheist, and you're not going to shove Jesus down their throat. It's just not going to happen.
No.
You're going to turn them away and they're going to go back, you know. So it's a very like soft approach to finding God. You know, it's like you can believe whatever you want to believe, but you need to believe in something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and it can start with just the group, you know, like Narcotics Anonymous is greater than yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And when you start to look around you'll start to see the people that are living a program, and then it's like, okay, well, what are these people believing, you know? Because if you're willing to do whatever it takes, and you're going to have an open mind about this thing, you know what I mean? Or else you're going to die a stubborn drug addict. You know what I mean? That's the truth. Like, if you're not willing to have an open mind about God, like, you're going to have a hard time in life in general, you know? So, but I didn't want Jesus shoved down my throat when I was new in recovery. I didn't even know who Jesus really was. You know what I mean? But the more I sought this higher power, the more I was led in that direction. You know what I mean? And that's been a journey on itself. But I'm a big believer in the higher power theme, you know, because it's what we need when we're fresh.
Yeah.
You know, I really believe that. And you'll find the truth in your own walk for yourself, you know.
Sure.
And God, you seek God and you'll find him. You know what I mean? And I know that to be true for myself and others. And yeah. So with all that being said, like, after all this journey you've been on, like, what do you think the purpose of life is? Like, what are we doing here?
Boy, that's a big question. That's ever changing for me, man.
Yeah.
Right now I'm in the journey of trying to guide a couple teenagers.
Yeah.
Trying to remind myself I'm powerless over their choices still. I mean, I'm still their parent, but I'm powerless over their 16 and 17-year-old choices. They're about to be 17, 18 next month. So, just trying to guide them.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It's
having
so
kids,
humbling, dude.
like,
And especially, I mean, they're almost adults, almost adult age, you know. And so my wife and I are, we're getting to that age where, like, they don't always. It's a weird dynamic. Sometimes they want to be around us. Sometimes they don't want anything to do with us. We have more free time, but yet it almost feels like we're, you know, not around enough. And it's interesting. It's just a weird, but, I think part of this life, we only have so much time on this earth. So I think it's about treating people good, instilling love, enjoying the time we have here, you know, and, you know, helping others, really. I mean, and right now, like I said, it's about a lot about helping our kids, trying to get them on their feet and learn about, like, how to navigate adulthood.
Yeah.
Which I think they're still going to be with us for a little while, and that's fine. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, you know, I missed out on a lot of life, I feel like, because of the addiction and getting loaded so early and giving up so much just to start getting loaded. And so, but then I remember, like, everything happens how it's supposed to, you know? And so, I work hard and I play hard, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I like I said, I gave up sports really young. And so since I've been clean, I've gotten to play in adult rec league basketball and win some championships, and played some softball and won some championships. And I've won a few disc golf tournaments and going to play Worlds this summer. And
Nice.
I want to help the kids do whatever they want to do. They don't really know what they want to do, but you know, we've encouraged them to do different things and tried to put them into whatever they want to do. And
and they're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, I mean, just the fact you even have a relationship with them, and, like, you know, thinking back to myself as a teenager, like, I was already a mess.
Oh, me too.
You know what I mean? You couldn't tell me shit.
No.
And you could try to steer me all you wanted, but I was gonna do what I was gonna do, you know. And that's okay, you know, because it's we're our own people, you know, and as much as you can influence your children and want to, like, they're gonna make their own decisions, you know, and you know, you see it, and I definitely see it having so many children. It's like they're all in the same house, but they all have wildly different personalities, you know, and it's like, how are we even related? You know, like, even me and my brother, you know, like,
true,
totally different personalities and like totally different perspectives on the same situation.
Yeah.
Have totally different perceptions on the way we were raised and how our father was and all these things, you know, and it's like we were in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, and our children are sovereign creations, you know, like they're their own people.
Yep.
And they are here to experience their own things, you know, and they're not ours, you know. We're shepherds of them, but they're not ours, you know. They're their own people and they're God's children.
They have their own higher powers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an honor to even be there and to guide them and to be part of that process, and you just try not to screw them up. You know,
we'll find out how we screwed them up later on.
Yeah, exactly.
When they're older
and they're on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right, man. You know. Well, thanks for coming out, Sam. I appreciate you, sure. And you know, keep on keeping on, dude. You're doing the Lord's work, and I appreciate you, and this community appreciates you. So
thanks, Blaine.
Yeah, we'll have you back. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Victorious we became, but never forgot where we came from. Life or death, not a game. We came to change the lane. Recovery addicts, that's the name. Give yourself a break, just one day at a time. You were born to shine, so live and let love be forever. My sister, my brother, don't give in. Please remember, the lie is dead. We do recover. Welcome home.